Okay, so are you ready to dive deep into positive thinking today?
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by this topic.
Me too. You sent over some really interesting articles from Mayo Clinic and Johns Hopkins Medicine.
Oh, yeah, and 1 in 5, that mental health organization.
Yeah, that's right. I think our mission today is to really explore how a positive mindset can actually impact our health and well-being.
It's not just some fluffy feel-good idea. It really does.
Yeah, and I think maybe even more importantly, we should try to figure out some practical ways to deal with negative thoughts.
Yeah, because we all have them.
We all have them. So I guess the first thing is what even is positive thinking?
That's a good question. It's more than just pretending everything is perfect or, ignoring problems.
Right, it's not about being in denial.
Yeah, exactly. It's more about facing those challenges head on, but with a constructive mindset.
So kind of approaching things with a glass half full attitude.
Yeah, exactly. Focusing on the good and what you can control. Like that traffic jam example from 1 in 5. Oh yeah, I remember that.
Instead of getting all stressed out, you can choose to use that time to listen to music.
Or just accept it.
Yeah, or just accept the situation. Exactly.
That's a good example because I know I get really frustrated in traffic.
Oh yeah, we all do.
So I guess it's about shifting your perspective.
It is. And you can apply that to so many other areas of life too. It's about finding the opportunity in the unexpected.
I love that. Turning lemons into lemonade.
Exactly.
But it's not just about feeling better in the moment. The articles you sent highlight some pretty amazing benefits, scientifically proven benefits of positive thinking.
Absolutely. The research from Johns Hopkins was really impressive. They found that people with a family history of heart disease who also had a positive outlook were less likely to have a heart attack or other cardiovascular problems.
By how much less likely?
A third less likely.
Wow, a third? It's a big difference.
It is. It really shows you how powerful our mindset can be.
It really does. And, it's not just heart health. Studies have shown that a positive attitude can lead to better outcomes in so many areas, from recovering from traumatic brain injuries to coping with chronic pain.
It's amazing. So how does that work? What's the connection between our thoughts and our physical health?
Well, when we get stressed, our bodies release these hormones like cortisol and adrenaline.
Right, the fight or flight response.
Exactly. They're meant to help us deal with short-term threats. But when we're constantly stressed and those negative thoughts just keep swirling around, our bodies get stuck in that high alert state.
So it's our bodies are always on edge, even when there's no real danger.
Yeah, and that's where the problems start. Over time, that constant flood of stress hormones leads to inflammation all over the body. Increased blood pressure. It can even weaken our immune system.
So it's slowly wearing us down.
It really is.
Wow. So we really need to manage our stress and cultivate a more positive outlook.
We do. And speaking of negativity, let's talk about those sneaky negative thought patterns that can really sabotage our efforts.
Yes. The Mayo Clinic article talked about that. They had this whole list of thought traps.
They did. One that I always struggle with is filtering.
Oh yeah, what's that one?
It's when you zero in on the negative parts of a situation and just completely ignore the good stuff.
Oh yeah. You hyper-focus on the negative.
Exactly. They gave that example of having an amazing day at work, getting compliments and praise, and then you go home and just dwell on the few tasks you didn't finish.
Oh, I've totally done that. It's our brains are wired to focus on the negative.
It's true. It's called the negativity bias.
We gloss over the good and obsess over the bad.
And it's not just filtering. There's also catastrophizing, where you automatically assume the worst possible outcome.
Ugh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
When you're running late for a meeting and suddenly you're convinced you're going to get fired.
It's easy to fall into those worst case scenarios.
So how do we recognize these thought patterns? It feels like they're so automatic.
You're right. It can be tricky. Awareness is the first step. The more you can notice them and label them for what they are, the easier it becomes to start questioning them.
So it's catching yourself in the act and saying, hold on, is this really likely to happen or am I just spiraling?
Exactly. And once you start to question those thoughts, you can begin to challenge their power over you.
That makes sense.
Okay.
So we know positive thinking is good for us and we're starting to recognize those negative thought patterns. But how do we actually shift our mindset? How do we start thinking more positively in our everyday lives?
Well, the Mayo Clinic suggests starting small. It can be overwhelming to try to change your entire thought process overnight.
Yeah, that sounds daunting.
Right. Instead, pick one area of your life where you tend to be negative. Maybe it's your commute or interactions with a certain coworker, or even just the way you talk to yourself in the mirror. And focus on shifting your thoughts in that specific area.
Oh, that's a good idea. So it's like tackling those negative thoughts one small battle at a time.
Exactly. Don't try to climb Mount Everest when you can start with a walk around the block.
Great analogy. And, it's not about denying or suppressing negative emotions altogether.
Right. Those feelings are valid and important. It's more about managing your reactions to them.
So we can acknowledge them, but not let them take over.
Exactly. It's about finding healthier, more constructive ways to cope with stress and challenges. And those coping mechanisms will look different for everyone.
Some people might find relief at exercise.
Yeah, others might turn to meditation or journaling.
Or even just spending time in nature.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and making it a regular part of your routine.
So it's about building those positive habits over time.
Absolutely. And those habits can have a ripple effect, not just on our own well-being, but on the people around us as well.
That's true. The Johns Hopkins article mentioned how positive thinking can actually strengthen our immune response.
Isn't that fascinating? When we're less stressed and more optimistic, our bodies are better equipped to fight off illness.
So it's like positive thoughts boost our body's natural defenses.
Exactly, and that's especially important these days when we're constantly bombarded with stressors.
It really is. And the 1 in 5 article made a great point about how a positive mindset can help us set better boundaries and recognize our self-worth.
Yeah.
That's an interesting connection. I hadn't thought of that before.
It's like when you feel more confident and positive, you're more likely to stand up for yourself and prioritize your own needs.
It creates a positive feedback loop where your thoughts and actions work together.
Exactly. They all work together to support our well-being.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. We talked about what positive thinking is, the science behind it, how to identify those negative thoughts, and even some tips for shifting our mindset. But before we wrap up, I'm curious, all these articles emphasize starting small. But how do we make those changes stick long term? How do we avoid falling back into old patterns?
That's a great question. I think consistency is key. You have to make those small changes part of your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth or taking a shower.
So it's not about making huge changes all at once.
Yeah, right. It's about incorporating those little positive habits into our everyday lives.
Okay, and being patient with ourselves, I imagine.
Definitely, change doesn't happen overnight, and there will be days when you slip up and those negative thoughts come creeping back in.
That's reassuring, because it's easy to get discouraged.
I know. But the key is to keep practicing. Keep coming back to those positive thoughts and behaviors, even when it feels challenging. And remember to celebrate those small victories along the way.
That's a good point. Sometimes we get so focused on the end goal that we forget to acknowledge the progress we're making.
Celebrating those small wins can be really motivating, and it helps us stay focused on the positive changes we're making, even when we encounter setbacks.
So it's about taking a long-term view, understanding that this is a journey, not a destination.
You got it. And it's a journey worth taking because the benefits of a positive mindset are truly profound. It's an investment in yourself, your health, your happiness.
I love that. So as we wrap up this deep dive into positive thinking, what stood out to you from all these articles? What one small shift could you try today to start thinking more positively?
What resonated most with me was the idea that our thoughts have a direct impact on our physical and emotional well-being, and that even small shifts in perspective can make a big difference. You don't have to wait for a big life change to start cultivating a more positive outlook. You can start right now in this very moment.
That's so empowering. Knowing we have the ability to change our thoughts and in turn, change our lives.
It is. And as you continue on your journey to a more positive and fulfilling life, here's something else to consider.
Okay, I'm listening.
If negative thoughts are like weeds in a garden, how can you cultivate a more positive mental landscape?
Ooh, I like that analogy. It's so vivid.
What kind of seeds do we need to plant?
What kind of nourishment do we need to provide?
What kind of fertilizer helps those positive thoughts thrive?
That's a great question to ponder.
And I think it's a question that each of us needs to answer for ourselves.
Because ultimately, the journey to a more positive life is a personal one.
But it's a journey we don't have to take alone.
Right. We have each other. We have resources like these incredible articles. And most importantly, we have the power within ourselves to make positive change.
Beautifully said. So keep those seeds of positivity growing, and remember, even small shifts in perspective can lead to a brighter and more fulfilling future.
I like that. So I guess we'll leave our listeners with that thought for today.
Sounds good.
Food for thought as you continue on your journey to a more positive and fulfilling life.
And until next time,
Stay
curious, stay open-minded, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.
So it's like we're tending a garden, but instead of flowers, it's our own mental well-being.
I love that analogy.
Sometimes it means like weeding out those persistent negative thoughts.
Yeah, you got to pull out those weeds.
But it also means like actively planting seeds of hope, gratitude, and self-compassion.
Yeah, and just like a garden, our minds need the right nourishment to thrive. So what are some of those essential nutrients for a positive mindset?
Well, that's where those daily practices come in. It's about finding what truly nourishes you.
Okay.
Whether it's exercise, meditation, spending time in nature, or simply connecting with loved ones. The key is to make those activities a regular part of your life.
So it's like creating a personalized recipe for a positive mindset.
I like that.
Figuring out which ingredients work best for you.
Exactly. And just like a good recipe, cultivating a positive mindset is an ongoing process. It's not about reaching some perfect state of unwavering positivity.
Right, you're never going to be positive all the time.
No, it's more about creating a mindset that supports your growth and well-being, even amidst life's inevitable ups and downs.
It's a journey, not a destination.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that can lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Well said. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored the power of positive thinking, the science behind it, and some practical tips for shifting our mindset. But more importantly, I hope we've inspired you to take action.
To start planting those seeds of positivity in your own life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as you go about your day, remember that you have the power to choose your thoughts.
You do.
And those thoughts have the power to shape your reality.
You really do.
So choose wisely and keep those positive vibes flowing.
And until next time, stay curious, stay open-minded, and keep diving deep.
See you on our next deep dive. Right? It's like we're gardeners of our own minds.
Exactly.
We have to cultivate that positive mental landscape.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing process.
So what do you think? What are some of the most important things we can do to nurture that positive mindset?
Well, I think it's about finding those practices that really resonate with you. The things that bring you joy and make you feel good.
Like what?
It could be spending time in nature or listening to music.
Or maybe just like taking a few minutes to meditate each day.
Exactly. It's about finding those little pockets of peace and positivity throughout your day.
Yeah, and making them a priority.
Absolutely. Because even small moments of joy can make a big difference.
So true. Well, I think that's a great note to end on.
Yeah, I think so too.
Remember, everyone, it's about progress, not perfection.
Keep those positive vibes flowing.
And we'll see you on our next deep dive.